There is something unsettling about airports at night. They are built to be symbols of movement, order, and control. Places where the world feels small and the future predictable. You watch people line up, scan their passports, find their seats, and vanish into the clouds. Yet, in every airport, there are hours when the noise dies, the lights dim, and the air begins to feel heavier than it should. Even the most modern terminals seem to remember something older, something they were built on top of. Hong Kong International Airport is one of those places. It handles millions of passengers every year, a symbol of the city's pride. But behind its glass walls and polished steel is another story, one that ISN. Printed in the brochures or spoken about in official interviews. It buried entire villages, ancient graves, and temples that had guarded the dead for centuries. When the workers leveled the hills to make room for runways, they found urns filled with ashes, bones that had been carefully wrapped in silk, and even wooden tablets with faded prayers. Some of those relics were relocated, some were not. The elders warned that moving the dead breaks their peace. But deadlines and budgets leave little room for superstition. The airport opened in 1998 with fireworks and television crews, and for a time, nothing seemed wrong. They spoke of shadows that moved where there should be, none of whispers in languages no one recognized. Of a woman in red who appeared in the reflection of glass doors near Gate 17, combing her hair while waiting for a child who never arrived. At first, people laughed it off, but the reports kept coming. Security footage disappeared from the archives. One night, a flight attendant saw something that changed the way she looked at her job forever. Her name was Erin, and she didn't believe in ghosts until she did. Erin had been working with Cathay Air for nearly 8 years, and she knew the rhythm of the airport by heart. Between midnight and 3 a.m., the terminals turned into ghost towns, lights humming, loudspeakers whispering half-hearted announcements to almost no one. She always liked those hours. Fewer passengers, fewer problems. That night, she was assigned to check supplies in the crew lounge near the western wing. The air conditioning was colder than usual, blowing a misty chill that made her wrap her jacket tighter. Her phone showed 2:44 a.m. when she finished her inventory and began walking toward the staff exit. That's when she saw him, a little boy, maybe 6 years old, standing alone by the women's restroom. He wore a small red jacket, the kind children used to wear in the early 2000s. His hands were clasped in front of him. His eyes were wide but calm, like he was waiting for someone. Erin stopped mid-step. "Hey there," she called softly. "Are you lost?" The boy didn't answer. He just looked at her, his expression unreadable, then turned slightly toward the restroom door. Erin frowned. There shouldn't have been any kids left in the terminal. The last passenger flight had departed over an hour ago. "Where's your mom?" she asked, walking closer. The boy still didn't speak. His skin looked pale in the fluorescent light, almost grayish, and when Erin blinked, she could have sworn she saw a faint mist around his feet. She rubbed her eyes. Maybe it was just the air conditioning. "Okay, hold on," she said. "Let's find your parents." She reached for her phone, but before she could dial, the boy pointed toward the restroom and whispered, barely audible, "She's inside." But the boy had already turned away and walked through the restroom door. She followed quickly, heart thumping. But when she entered, the place was empty. The sinks gleamed, the stalls were closed, and the hum of the ventilation filled the silence. "Hello?" she called out, checking under the doors. One stall, the farthest one, appeared slightly ajar. "Are you in there, sweetheart?" Erin pushed gently. The door creaked open, revealing nothing but a faint smell of damp air. Exhaled, half relieved, half uneasy. That est when she noticed the reflection in the mirror behind her, a woman in a red dress standing still by the sinks, brushing her long black hair. Erin turned sharply, but the space was empty. When she looked back into the mirror, the woman was still there, her head tilted slightly, eyes meeting Erin's through the reflection. The sound of hair brushing grew louder, dragging through the silence like a whisper in her ear. Erin's breath caught. The woman's feet weren't touching the ground. For a moment, Erin couldn't move. The sight in the mirror defied logic. The woman's crimson dress flowed as though stirred by an unseen breeze, and her hair, impossibly long, shimmered darkly beneath the fluorescent light. She looked neither solid nor transparent, but something in between, like a photograph that refused to stay still. The air inside the restroom shifted, became heavy, pressing down on Erin's chest, the kind of weight that makes breathing feel wrong. She blinked once, then again, hoping it was just her tired eyes playing tricks. But the reflection didn't vanish. The woman's lips began to move, whispering something inaudible. It wasn't Cantonese, and it wasn't English. It was something older, rolling like waves against stone. Erin turned around, half expecting to find someone standing behind her, but the tiled floor stretched empty. When she looked back at the mirror, the woman was closer now, her face sharper, eyes wide and unblinking, hair dripping as if she'd just stepped out of the ocean. One drop of water slid down the glass, leaving a red streak like diluted blood. Erin stumbled backward, nearly slipping on the polished floor. "Who are you?" she gasped, her voice trembling. No reply came, only that faint rustling sound. The brushing of hair growing louder, circling her like the sound itself had taken form. Lights flickered. The reflection fractured into several panes, each showing the woman at a different angle, brushing, 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 her face bending and distorting as the bulbs buzzed above. Erin's instincts screamed to run. She reached for the door, but it wouldn't budge. Her palm slid against the metal handle, slick with condensation. She yanked harder, panic now taking over. Behind her, the mirrors went black for a split second. Then she heard the sound of bare feet stepping onto the tiles. Soft, deliberate, close. She didn't dare turn around. The air smelled like rain-soaked earth, old and metallic. Slowly, a shadow crossed over hers, long and thin, moving toward the exit. The door handle twisted on its own, the lock clicking open. Erin stumbled out into the hallway, her breath ragged, and turned to look back. The restroom lights had gone completely dark. But just before the automatic door slid shut, she saw the boy again standing inside. This time, he wasn't looking at her. He was looking at the woman behind him now, fully visible, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. The door closed, sealing them both inside. Erin ran. Erin didn't stop running until she reached the security desk near the cargo elevators. Her breath came in broken gasps, and her hands were shaking so badly she could barely swipe her ID. The security officer on duty, an older man named Raymond, looked up from his monitors. "Whoa, Erin, you look like you've seen a ghost." She froze at the irony of his words, unable to even form a nervous laugh. "There's someone in the restroom," she stammered. "A woman and a boy. They shouldn't be there." Raymond frowned. "At this hour, you sure it's not a cleaning crew?" "No," she whispered. "It wasn't anyone from the staff." He sighed, muttered something about people sneaking in, and turned to one of the screens. "Show me which restroom," she pointed. The man typed quickly, pulling up the camera feed from the corridor. There it was, the long, empty hallway leading to the women's restroom. Erin's heart pounded as they watched the playback. It showed her walking down the hall, stopping near the door, talking to someone unseen. "That's me," she said, voice trembling. "Keep watching." Raymond clicked ahead. They saw her open the restroom door and go inside. The seconds dragged on, to minutes. 3. "There," she said suddenly. "Pause it. Rewind a few seconds." On the screen, the door to the restroom opened again. She came running out, just as she remembered. But there was something off. In the video, the door behind her didn't close. It stood open. And in the corner of the frame, barely visible, was the reflection of something red. "Can you zoom in?" she whispered. Raymond did. The image blurred, then sharpened slightly. There, standing by the sink, was a faint outline of a woman in a red dress. Raymond leaned closer to the screen, his face tightening. "That's impossible," he said under his breath. "That hallway camera doesn't show reflections from inside the restroom? There's no mirror facing that angle." Erin's mouth went dry. "Then how do you explain that?" Raymond said nothing, stood up abruptly, grabbed his flashlight, and gestured for her to follow. "We'll go check it out. Maybe there's someone pulling a prank." She didn't want to go back, but fear mixed with the desperate need for answers. Together they walked down the silent corridor, the beam of the flashlight cutting through the gloom. When they reached the restroom, the door was closed again. Raymond pushed it open slowly. "Anybody in here?" he called. The sound of his voice echoed back hollowly. They stepped inside. Everything looked normal. No boy, no woman, no water on the floor. only the smell damp and metallic, just as Aaron had remembered. Raymond checked each stall, shining the light across the tiled walls. Nothing, he said, sounding more uneasy now. Then Aaron noticed something on the mirror. She reached up to touch it. Smudges, faint but deliberate, like fingerprints drawn in circles. Her hand trembled as she traced the outline. It wasn't random. It was a message. For words scrawled backwards as if written from the other side of the glass. "We never left here." Raymond stepped closer to the mirror, squinting at the foggy letters. "Could be leftover residue," he muttered, though his voice carried no conviction. Aaron shook her head. "No, it wasn't there before. I looked right at this mirror earlier." He wiped a corner of the glass with his sleeve, but the words refused to fade. They were inside the mirror, etched beneath the surface, like scratches that had healed over time. "Let's go," he finally said. "I'll review all the cameras in that section. Maybe we'll find who did this." Aaron followed him out, though every step away from that mirror felt wrong, as if something unseen was tugging her backward. When they reached the control room again, Raymond pulled up the live feeds. "Now we'll see who's been having fun at our expense." His fingers danced over the keyboard, selecting the timestamps from the moment she first entered the restroom. But when he pressed play, the screen stayed black. "That's strange," he murmured. "Camera 12 is down." He checked another angle, same result. Entire floors recordings between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock a.m. had vanished. Aaron's stomach sank. "You said the cameras loop every 24 hours, right? So where's the data?" Raymond leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing. "The footage is gone. Deleted manually." "Deleted? By who?" she asked, her voice rising. "Only 2 people have accessed me and the building manager." Raymond reached for his radio to call the manager, but the device crackled with static, then fell silent. He frowned and tried again. The same result. The room's lights flickered. One monitor after another started showing faint interference-like shapes moving across the grainy screens. "Is that someone walking?" Aaron asked, her breath catching. Raymond leaned forward. "No one should be on that floor now." The distorted image stabilized just long enough for them to see it clearly. A woman in red was standing in the middle of the hallway, her head tilted slightly, facing the camera directly. Her face was featureless, like the lens couldn't focus on it. "That can't be live," Raymond said. "The floor's empty." He switched to the building map on the system's control panel. The motion sensors were active, blinking red dots, moving one by one. Tracing the outline of the same hallway where the restroom was, they stopped exactly where Aaron stood earlier. "Maybe it's glitching," Raymond whispered, though the sweat forming on his forehead betrayed his fear. Aaron stepped back, the urge to leave overwhelming. "Not staying here," she said. "I think it's not a prank, and you know it." Raymond didn't answer. His gaze was fixed on one monitor, the one that now displayed the control room itself. A live feed. They were both visible on the screen, but something was wrong. The reflection showed a third figure standing right behind them. Slowly, Raymond turned. There was nothing there. It was only the cold draft of air slipping through the vent. The moment he faced the monitor again, the figure was gone. He slammed the power switch and all the screens went dark. "We're done here," he said. "Let's get out of this building." They left in silence, each step echoing down the long corridor. But as the door shut behind them, Aaron thought she heard something faint from one of the monitors that was supposed to be off, a woman's voice, whispering from the static. "He never left here." By morning, the events of the night refused to fade from Aaron's mind. She hadn't slept at all. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that red dress, that blurred face staring into the camera like it could see her through the lens. At sunrise, she called the building's management office. Her voice trembled as she explained what had happened. The man on the other end, a supervisor named Collins, listened in silence. When she finished, he spoke softly. "That floor has been closed for years, Ms. Reed. There are no active restrooms there. It's under renovation." Aaron froze. "That's not possible. I was there last night. Everything looked normal. The lights were on." "The power to that level was cut off last summer," Collins replied. "There shouldn't have been any electricity running there at all." He promised to meet her at the site later that morning, along with a maintenance officer. Aaron hung up, heart pounding harder than before. Either Collins was wrong, or she and Raymond had stepped into something that wasn't entirely real. When she arrived back at the building, Raymond was already there, pale and jittery. "I checked the system again before you got here," he said quickly. "The missing footage is still gone. But here's the weird part. Every time I try to restore it, the computer freezes, like something's blocking the process." "And the rest of the cameras?" she asked, all fine. "Only the floor we were on is corrupted." They waited for Collins in the lobby, and when he arrived, he carried a clipboard full of building records. "Let's take a look," he said. Together they rode the freight elevator to the restricted level. The metal doors opened with a groan. The corridor stretched ahead, gray and empty. The fluorescent lights flickered to life. "You see," Collins said, "no power outages. Everything's working now." Raymond frowned. That wasn't the case last night. They reached the women's restroom. Collins stepped inside first, scanning the room with his flashlight. The air was still, stale, thick with the smell of mildew. "No one's been in here for months," he said. Aaron hesitated before following. The mirror was cracked now, a jagged web running across its surface. She stepped closer and saw faint streaks beneath the glass remnants of that same message. "We never left here." Collins turned to Raymond. "What time did you say you recorded the figure?" "Around 2:45, the supervisor nodded slowly, flipping through his clipboard. "Interesting," he murmured. "What?" Aaron asked. "According to maintenance logs, this floor was sealed off on April 19th, 2015. That's the night of the fire." Aaron's breath caught. "What fire?" Collins glanced up. "You didn't know? A woman and her son were trapped in this restroom after a short circuit caused the building to go up in flames. They found their bodies right under that vent." He pointed toward the ceiling fan above the stalls. Raymond and Aaron stared at each other, both remembering the boy in the reflection, sound of dripping water, and that awful red dress. Collins continued, "The fire department said she was trying to shield him from the smoke when they died." "They never made it out," Aaron whispered, "and she was wearing red." "That's what the reports said," Collins replied. "A red silk dress. Burned, but still visible when they pulled her out." The silence that followed felt suffocating. Raymond finally spoke, his voice barely audible. "Then what did we see last night?" Collins didn't answer. He was staring at the cracked mirror, where something faint was beginning to appear like fog gathering on the glass. Words formed slowly, the same handwriting as before. Only this time, the message read, "Still waiting." That night, sleep was out of the question. Erin sat in her apartment with every light on, replaying the scene over and over in her head. Still waiting. Waiting for what? Or for whom? She tried to reason with herself. It must have been some leftover residue or condensation or a trick of light. But deep down, she knew better. The handwriting on that mirror wasn't random. It had appeared with purpose. At exactly 2:59 a.m., her phone buzzed on the table, startling her. It was a text from Raymond. "It's happening again." Aaron's blood ran cold. He attached a photograiny security footage from his home monitor. Dark corridor, barely illuminated by the faint red glow of his TV in standby mode. In the reflection of the screen, there was someone standing behind him, wearing what looked like a red dress. Aaron didn't even think. She grabbed her car keys and drove straight to the security office. The streets were empty, wet with rain, the streetlights flickering through the fog. When she arrived, the front door was unlocked, hanging slightly open. "Raymond." She called out, no answer. The building was too quiet, like it was holding its breath. She followed the faint hum of the monitors to the control room. The air inside was freezing. Raymond's chair was still spinning slightly, as if he'd just gotten up. On the largest screen, the live feed from the hallway camera was playing, but something was wrong. The timestamp read 3:00 a.m. sharp. And there she was, again the woman in red, standing at the far end of the corridor. This time, the image was clear. Her eyes were dark voids, her face expressionless, her head tilted as if listening to something beyond the world of the living. Slowly, she began to move toward the camera. Aaron stepped back, her hand covering her mouth. The closer the figure got, the clearer the details became, the way her skin shimmered with soot. The tears in the dress, the faint sound of a child crying somewhere just behind her. The speakers crackled. Then, softly, a voice came through Amon's voice, strained, whispering as if from another room. "You're just looking for him." Aaron froze. "Raymond," she whispered. Where are you?" No response, only static, then a faint thump from the hallway outside. She turned, flashlight trembling in her hand, and started toward the noise. The elevator doors at the end of the hall stood open. Inside, the floor indicator flickered erratically between 3 and B2. From somewhere deep below, a child's voice called out faintly, "Mom?" Erin's stomach twisted. Against every instinct screaming at her to run, she stepped into the elevator. The doors slid shut, sealing her inside. The descent began, slow at first, then faster, as if gravity itself had turned against her. The lights inside flickered. The reflection in the mirrored wall shifted, her own face replaced for a moment by the woman's. Erin gasped, stepping back, but the voice that came next wasn't hers. It was the woman's, soft and broken, whispering right beside her ear, "Help me find my boy." The elevator shuddered violently, then stopped. The doors creaked open, not to the lobby, but to a dark hallway she had never seen before. The floor was damp, the walls scorched black. Hanging from the ceiling vent above was a faintly glowing rope, swaying back and forth as if something invisible had just brushed past it. Erin stepped out of the elevator, the metallic scent of burnt air stinging her nose. The place was silent, except for the steady dripping of water echoing down the corridor. The concrete walls were blackened, scarred by heat, and on the floor lay fragments of charred ceiling tiles brittle beneath her shoes. Every breath felt heavier, like the air itself didn't want to be disturbed. She aimed her flashlight forward, and the beam cut through the mist that clung to the hallway like smoke frozen in time. The deeper she went, the colder it got, naturally cold. Her breath came out in pale ribbons. Somewhere ahead, faint but unmistakable, came the soft sob of a child. "Hello?" she called, her voice trembling. "It's okay. I'm here to help you." No answer. Just another sob, closer this time. Her light flickered over an open doorway on the left. She stepped inside. The room looked like an old maintenance area, rusted lockers, a half-collapsed ceiling, the floor still stained from water damage. And there, in the far corner, stood a small boy, his back to her. He was wearing a blue shirt, torn at the shoulder, and his bare feet left damp prints on the concrete. "Hey," Erin whispered softly, her heart pounding. "You're safe now. Let's get you out of here." Slowly, the boy turned around. His face was pale, almost translucent, and his eyes, those eyes were hollow, glinting faintly like reflections on water. He opened his mouth, but the voice that came out wasn't his. It was older, deeper, echoing as if spoken from inside a cavern. "She's still looking." Erin stumbled back. "Who?" she asked, though she already knew. "Your mother." The boy nodded once, his expression blank. "She can't find me." "You took her place." Her stomach dropped. "What?" The air around her shifted, and the lights flickered violently. Behind her, the elevator doors slammed shut with a metallic roar. When she turned back to the boy, he was gone. The room stretched wider somehow, the shadows shifting, twisting into new shapes. From the far end, a figure began to emerge, low, deliberate steps echoing through the silence. The red dress was torn and scorched now, the fabric clinging to burned skin. The woman's eyes were fixed on Erin, her movements fluid yet fractured, like she was gliding rather than walking. "I couldn't save him," the woman whispered, her voice filled with sorrow that didn't belong to this world. "The fire took him from me, now." Her hand reached out, trembling. "You will take my place." Erin backed up until she hit the wall. "No," she said, shaking her head. "You don't have to do this. He needs a mother," the spirit said, her expression breaking into something almost human, almost pleading. "He's waiting. You can hear him too, can't you?" The child's cry echoed again, softer now, as if coming from deep within the walls. Erin closed her eyes, every instinct screaming to run, but when she opened them, the woman was gone. Only the red dress remained, lying on the floor, still smoldering at the edges. The child's voice faded completely. For a moment, everything was silent again. She turned toward the elevator, its doors now open, waiting. The floor indicator glowed faintly, 3:00 a.m. She stepped inside. The moment the door shut, her phone buzzed. One new message. No number, just a single line of text. We're home now. Erin froze. Her reflection in the elevator's mirror was smiling back at her, but she wasn't. The reflection raised its hand and pressed the emergency stop button. The lights dimmed, and somewhere in the darkness, the child began to hum. It was the same melody she had heard in the footage soft, haunting and endless.